Hi, sixth graders. This lesson is on dividing fractions. So make sure you label your page with dividing fractions at the top so you know clearly what lesson this is on. Our learning target is I can divide fractions and mixed numbers. And then this is a phrase that you'll want to write underneath and circle it or put a little cute little cloud over it around it like this. Dividing fractions is easy as pie. Flip the second fraction and multiply. So when we divide fractions, we're going to be working with the multiplicative inverse and the reciprocal, which these two words are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. So write these two words down in your notebook. And then this is when you multiply by a number to get 1. So include these examples of multiplicative inverse and reciprocal. So if I have 2/3, the multiplicative inverse or the reciprocal is going to be 3/2. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just flipping my fraction. Because 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6, 6 equals 1. So when you multiply by the reciprocal of a number, it should always get you to 1. So if I have 5/9, the reciprocal would be 9/5. If I have 1/2, the reciprocal would be 2/1, which any number over 1 is just itself. Let's say I have 4. The reciprocal then would be I have to make my whole number a fraction by putting a 1 under it. So the reciprocal would be 1/4. If I have so let's look here. Find the multiplicative inverse of 2/5. Again, we just flip it around. So the multiplicative inverse would be 5/2. Let's look at 2 and 1/3. It's not going to be 2 and 3/1. I have to actually change this to an improper fraction first and then flip it around to get my reciprocal. So 2 and 1/3 is the same as 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 1, so 7/3, which means my multiplicative inverse is going to be 3/7. You try these 4 on your own, come back and check to see if you got them correct. So the multiplicative inverse of 5/6 is going to be 6/5. The multiplicative inverse of 1/2, well, I'm going to rewrite this. 2 times 1 plus 1, plus is 3/2, so the multiplicative inverse would be 2/3. 8 is the same as 8/1, so the reciprocal would be 1/8. And then 4/3, the reciprocal would be 3/4. When we divide by fractions, we're actually multiplying by its multiplicative inverse or the reciprocal. So let's look at this for a second. 7/8 divided by 3/4. So if we're looking right here, 7/8 divided by 3/4 is actually the same as 7/8 times the reciprocal, which is 4/3. If we look over here, A over B divided by C over D, I keep A over B, I change it to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip my second fraction, and so it's going to be multiplied times D over C. So I want you to look at these examples really quick. So if we have 8 divided by 2, so I'm looking right here. 8 divided by 2, as we all know and have known forever, is 4. And that's because I'm taking 8. So let's say I have 8 x's. And I'm dividing them into groups of 2. So then I have 4 groups. If I have 8 so I can see that if I'm taking half of 8, that is the same as dividing by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is the same as keep my 8, multiply it by the reciprocal, which remember this reciprocal of 2 would be 1/2, multiply it by the reciprocal, and we get the same answer. So if I have 4, so let's look at this one. 4 divided by 1/3, and we get 12. So if we divide something by a number less than 1, that means we're going to get a bigger answer because we're dividing it into parts of a whole. So if I have 4 circles and I'm dividing them into groups of 1/3, so that's going to be a group, that's going to be a group, that's going to be a group. And then I'm dividing my circles into 1/3, and then here's another group, here's another group, here's another group, and then here's a group, here's a group, here's a group, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So I have 3 groups here, 3 groups here, 3 groups here, 3 groups here. So if I divide them into groups of 1/3, that's why I have 12 groups. So 4 divided by 1/3, let me move this over a little bit, is the same as, I keep my first number the same, multiply times the reciprocal of 1/3, which is 3, and then I get 12. So if you did not write this down earlier, or write down dividing fractions as easy as pi, flip the second fraction and multiply. Another thing that would be helpful for you to write is keep, change, flip. So keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction, which is the reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse.
All right, so when we are dividing fractions, here are the steps that we follow. So make sure you've got these written down. So first of all, we need to change any mixed numbers to improper fractions. Then if we have any whole numbers, we need to put a 1 underneath them or put them over 1, so make them into a fraction. And then we keep, change, flip. So keep the first fraction the same, change the sign from division to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction to its reciprocal. So you flip the numerator and the denominator. And then we multiply just like we did when we were multiplying fractions. And then you just have to make sure, simplify your answer, turn it back into a mixed number if you need to. So let's see what exactly that means. So we have 3/4 divided by 1/2. So we are taking 3/4 and we are splitting it in half. So I keep the first fraction the same as 3/4. Keep, change, flip. I change from division to multiplication, and I flip the second fraction. So I change it from 1/2 to become 2/1. And now we just multiply. I'm going to look for shortcuts. So looking at my diagonals, I see that these both share a factor of 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now I can multiply numerators. 3 times 1 is 3, and 2 times 1 is 2. So I have an improper fraction. I need to turn that into a mixed number. 2 goes into 3 one time, with 1 left over out of 2. If you hadn't done the shortcuts to begin with, you would just have extra step of simplifying at the end. So 3/4 divided by 1/2 equals 1 and 1/2. Okay. So try on these next problems if you're feeling comfortable. Otherwise, you can continue following along. So 3/4 divided by 1/4. Again, keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction the same. Change from division to multiplication, and flip the reciprocal, or flip to the reciprocal. So 1/4 would become 4/1. Look for my shortcuts on here. I see that these diagonals are both share a factor of 4. They can be divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Now I can multiply numerators. 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 1 is 1. I have an improper fraction, so I need to turn it into a mixed number. 1 goes into 3 times with nothing left over, so my answer is 3. Next one, 4/5 divided by 8/9. Again, keep, change, flip. Keep it as 4/5. Change from division to multiplication. And then you're going to flip the second fraction to 9/8. Look for the shortcuts. These can both be divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 5 and 9 don't share anything, so now multiply numerators. 1 times 9 is 9, and 5 times 2 is 10. 9 and 10 do not share any common factors other than 1, so this is in simplest form, so our answer is 9/10. Again, if you hadn't done the shortcuts to begin with, you would just have an extra step of simplifying at the end. Next one, 5/6 divided by 2/3. Keep, change, flip. So keep as 5/6. Change from division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction from to 3/2. Looking for my shortcuts here, I see that these can both be divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Multiply numerators. 5 times 1 is 5. And 2 times 2 is 4. Multiply the denominators. Again, I have an improper fraction, so I have to turn this into a mixed number. 4 goes into 5 one time with a remainder of 1, and I keep the denominator of 4, so my answer would be 1 and 1/4. So 5 and 5, or 5/6 split into 2/3, you would have 1 and 1/4 for your answer.
Okay, team, here we go. Let's divide some mixed numbers now. So the steps are that you are going to change any mixed numbers to improper fractions. Put any whole numbers over 1. You're going to rewrite them to stay organized. Make sure that you make these changes before you change it to multiplication. So we're going to make the changes and rewrite, and then we're going to keep the first fraction the same, change the sign to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction to its reciprocal, or as I like to call it, reciprocal. Then you're going to multiply and make sure you simplify. I like to estimate before I do things. So looking at this one here, I'm going to find 2/3 divided by 3 1/3. First thing I'm thinking is that my second number is greater than my first number. So I know that it's not going to fit in there one whole time. It's too big. So I know that my answer should be less than 1. That's my estimate. So then I'm going to follow my steps. So I'm going to leave 2/3 alone. I'm going to change my mixed number as an improper fraction. And I know that 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So 3 1/3 is the same as 10/3. Now I can keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep 2/3, and I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/10, right? Because dividing by 3 1/3 is the same as saying multiplying by 3/10. So I know that I can cross cancel. I know 2 goes into 2 once. I know 2 goes into 10 5 times. And then I see that these 3's are the same. So they both share a factor of 3 one time. This makes it really easy, and I don't really even have to simplify at the end. So then I have 1 times 1, which is just 1. 1 times 5, which is just 5. I think back to my estimate. My estimate was that my answer should be less than 1 because 3 1/3 is way bigger than 2/3. And it looks like that's pretty reasonable. All right, so now you try. Maybe you want to try a few more with me. Maybe you want to do some on your own and come back and check. Up to you. For D, we have 5, and that's a whole number. So I know I need to write that over 1. 5 over 1 is still the same as 5. I'm not going to try to do too much at once. I'm going to write division here, and then change this to a improper fraction. 1 1/3 is the same as 4/3. So now that everything's set up, now I can do my keep, change, flip. So I'm going to leave 5 multiplied by the reciprocal of 3/4. I forgot to estimate, but I know that I'm trying to fit something close to 1 into 5. So it should be going in there a little less than 5 times. So I don't see anything that I can cross cancel, so I'm going to multiply straight across. 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 4 is 4. And I have an improper fraction that I will then change to a mixed number. I know that 4 goes into 5 3 whole times for 12, and that there are 3 left over out of the fourths I would need to make another whole number. So I get 3 3/4. On to number E, or letter E. I see 3/4, which I can leave the same, divided by, need to change my mixed number to an improper fraction. 1 1/2 is the same as 3/2. Now that they're in the right form, I can keep, change, flip. Dividing fractions is easy as pie. Flip the second and multiply. I see that I can cross cancel, but maybe I forget that. On this one, I'm just going to multiply straight across and simplify at the end. So here I see 3 times 2, which I know is 6. 4 times 3, which I know is 12. And then I know that 6 and 12 share a factor of 6. This is the same as 1/2. Again, I forgot to estimate, but at the end I can go see if that's reasonable. So I look and I see, okay, I'm trying to fit a number greater than 3/4 into it, so I know it should be less than 1. Last one here, F. 2 1/3 divided by 5. So I have a mixed number that I need to change to an improper fraction. 2 1/3 is the same as 7/3. 5 is the same as 5/1. Well, I know that dividing by 5 is the same as what's 1/5 of a number. And I also notice that 5 is greater than 2 1/3. So I know my answer should be maybe close to 1/2. So I'm going to now keep, change, and flip. And I don't see anything I can cancel, so I'm going to multiply straight across. 7 times 1 is 7. 3 times 5 is 15. 7 is a prime number, and 15 is not a multiple of it, so that's simplified. My estimate was 1/2, and that is pretty close. Now let's try a word problem. I'm planning for a party. 5 1/4 pounds of cashews will be divided into 3/4 pound bags. How many such bags can be made? So we know, first of all, that we're dividing because it tells us to, but we also know that we are picturing something, a total of 5 1/4, and that those are going to be dispersed then into smaller amounts, 3/4 pound bags. And we're wondering how many of these can we have? So what we're really wondering is how many times can we make 3/4 fit into 5 1/4? So there it is, set up. So now, of course, we know that we're going to change these to be an improper fraction. And so we know that 5 times 4 is 20 plus 1. So 5 1/4 is the same as 21/4. We're trying to figure out how many times 3/4 goes in there. So then we can multiply by the reciprocal of 4/3. And we know that our answer should be more than 5 because we're dividing by a number less than 1. I can cross cancel here. 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 4 once. 3 and 21 share a factor of 3. 3 goes into 21 7 times. Because of that, now we've reduced it ahead of time. We only have 7 times 1 and 1 times 1, which is exactly 7. So the answer to our word problem would be, how many such bags can be made? So we can make 7 bags of the cashews. So 7 3/4 pound bags. Here's a review spot for you. Maybe you want to take a screenshot. Steps for dividing fractions and mixed numbers. Remember, you are to change mixed numbers to improper fractions. You are to put a 1 under any whole number. You want to rewrite each step to stay organized. Don't try to do too much in one spot. Keep the first fraction the same. Never change it. Step 5 is to change then the multiplication to division, and then you change the second fraction to its reciprocal. You'll multiply straight across numerators and denominators, and then if you didn't cross cancel it earlier, then you'll simplify your fraction. Remember, you must change mixed numbers to improper fractions before attempting to multiply or divide. I hope that you have some great resources here. Now it's time for you to try it on your own. Go ahead in your notebook or on your notes template to do these 3. Make sure you post them to where your teacher can see them. Show all of your thinking and always try your best. All right, now that you're finished, make sure your notes look good. Make sure that you could go back to use them when you need to. Do they have a title, a learning target? Are there any vocab words and definitions? And of course, make sure there are neat and readable examples. Check for understanding by explaining these concepts to a friend or family member. Rewatch any section of the video that you might need to. And of course, try more practice problems. iExcel is a great tool. Always use your notes to help you when completing your assignments and assessments and doing your Zoom sessions. Come ready with questions. See you soon.